Good afternoon, YouTube. So this is the first video of 2023, and trust me, I've got so much content. I've actually been working on another document to talk about CNIs, and I'm actually going to be releasing that hopefully tomorrow. At least talk about the different CNIs. I've just tested Calico, Flannel, Cilium, and of course ovn-kubernetes. And I want to kind of talk about the differences and maybe kind of get into them a little bit more. But today's video to kind of talk a little bit about what's coming in 2023. So the first thing I want to talk about is the release of the OpenShift platform 4.12. So the release was ultimately the 17th, which is yesterday. I'm seeing the updating of the documents today, the 19th of January. And so what's so significant about OpenShift 4.12 and BIGIP? And I've been doing quite a bit of testing in the last 3 months, specifically working with the folks at RedHat, Mark Curry on the product management side, about some of the changes that we've made with the CNI. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to OpenShift, Red Hat networking, and F5 BIGIP is the CNIs. And I'm actually quite happy to announce that ovn-kubernetes is the default networking solution for OpenShift container platforms for OCP, for single node OpenShift deployment. Well, single node OpenShift deployment, that's on the OpenShift side. But on the BIGIP side, you can obviously scale multiple OpenShift deployments using site load balancing, such as our external DNS solution for site load balancing using DNS. That's one way to mitigate that. The cool thing about the default of ovn-kubernetes, it removes the whole concept of this hybrid approach. It removes the concept of using OpenShift SDN with tunnels, aka using something like Flannel. And to be honest with you, Flannel works really well. I'm a huge proponent of Flannel, and I've documented that on this channel. The complication is Flannel having to set up the VXLAN tunnels on BIGIP and potentially open firewalls. So now that ovn-kubernetes is default, there's no longer a requirement to use an overlay. Just use simple routing. BIGIP can route to the node interface, and the node interface will ultimately sub-route, or it will just route that traffic on to a sub-interface, which is the container network, or the container pod network, or the CIDR for the pod network. And that's basically what it is. And I've actually documented that in some of my latest documentation. So as you can see right here, this is the latest doc that I wrote, where I'm using advanced OpenShift routes. So CIS has refactored, relaunched our next-gen route. It's going to be GA in this current CIS release of 2.12, coming in about 4 to 5 weeks from now. We're gonna GA it. It's going to allow you to do a lot of complex stuff that you cannot do with the Route API. So you can continue doing routes, but you can mix and match namespaces, you can mix and match personas. It's very similar to the way Gateway API is architected. The only difference is that using the Route API, and in combination with control policies through CIS. But the biggest thing is this interaction from BIGIP into the cluster is using ovn-kubernetes by default. And so when you're using ovn-kubernetes by default, there's no CNI. So I don't have to worry about any CNI. I don't see Flannel here or anything like that. I can just configure my config map, my global config map. I can configure my routes and kind of off I go. Now this is a cool example of using routes with WAF. You can see there's my different WAF policies for different namespaces. But if you want to go back to the networking, you can actually go back to my site here, where I have some really good docs here on ovn-kubernetes installation with standalone and with HA with no tunnels. So standalone, you can actually see here, this is just a standalone BIGIP, but you can use HA as well. Now, if you're using standalone, it's fine to use this annotation, but this annotation is not required. Annotation is egress. If you want to put the annotation here for egress for external traffic, you can do that, but you don't have to. It's just going to use the node default gateway. This is only required if you're using hybrid. But if you're not using hybrid, this can be kind of removed. So if you see the differences between single versus HA, I'm not using the annotation. It's up to you. Honestly, I wouldn't use it. But this is kind of how to configure it. You can see here that we're creating these static routes. So we basically find the node network right here, and we map the node network to the node itself. So the node will just route. It's not using kube proxy to proxy the connection. It's just a simple route on the interface. And there's more information about this if you want to dig deeper into ovn-kubernetes. And then all we do in BIGIP, we just create the route. See, BIGIP has a route to this network through this pod, through this node, to this pod through this node. So all of this changes with ovn-kubernetes now being default in 4.12. So where is F5 with validation of OpenShift 4.12? And I've just got the information and I'm updating the docs right now. We have finished our verification and supportability for OCP 4.12 for a pure IPv4 stack. So that means that we ran all our regressions, all our CNIs against OpenShift 4.12 with the latest version of CIS, which is 2.11.1. And everything is passing as normal. And so therefore, I'm happy to announce that the F5 CIS is supportable with OpenShift 4.12. Now, OpenShift 4.12 is going to be the LTS release for OpenShift. So that's really good news. That documentation will be updated on the F5 site over the next 24 hours. TechRad is working on it. But you can move forward with OCP 4.12 with using the latest version of CIS and feel confident that you're going to get support in a traditional environment using OVN-Kubernetes. So that's my update. Watch out for more updates. I have a lot of content coming. Also on the automation of BIGIP, there's a lot of content coming on this channel this year. My goal is to grow this to 500 subscribers. I'm almost there. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It's actually kind of cool to see how this grows. It helps me because I can communicate directly with the community on a more frequent than potentially going through our sales organization. So I really appreciate that. And I'll look forward to what 2023 has to bring and more great content. If you have ideas, if you need to see or want to see stuff documented, anything regarding automation of BIGIP, please drop me a message and then it gives me some ideas on what to post next. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.